Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you seem to think you are. Let us all come into this moment now, releasing all thoughts of past and all thoughts of future. Just enter into this moment now, recalling that the only time that truly is now. And breathe. So, we want to talk to you today about some things, as we are sure that you would like to as well. We wanted to start off today by reminding you that this session is to help you with your awakening, not to give you tips on how to better sleep. Does that make sense to everyone? Meaning, we're not going to give you more bedtime stories. What we are going to give you today, and what we give you every time we come through, are tips and processes to help you stay awake, aware, and awaken further, you see. You wanted to learn how to maintain that constant state of awareness so that you won't slip back into the patterns of sleep that you are so accustomed to. Not only are you accustomed to them, but you're addicted to them. Without them, you, as you currently perceive yourself, wouldn't exist. We've talked extensively about the illusion, and that this world that you seem to find yourself in is a state of illusion. It is a dream, you see. And you are not a figure in the dream, but you are actually the mind dreaming it, you see, which really puts you in a place of control, actually. Not necessarily in the things in the form world, like what other people are doing, you see. Sometimes that can be a confusion. Well, I was told that I have some sort of control of my dream, but I wanted someone else to do something different, but they didn't do it. Why is that so? Because that's not what you are in control of, you see. What you are in control of is your state of mind, is how you perceive and with whom you see. Remember, you have two parts to your mind. You have your right mind and your wrong mind. Your right mind always leads you to thoughts of peace, forgiveness, acceptance, and light. Whereas your wrong mind will point out all the things you don't like and tell you to get all hot and bothered by it, invest more energy into it, because somehow investing more energy into what you don't like will solve the problem. Does that even make sense? If you really think about that giving more energy to something that you don't like is somehow going to correct the problem. It's not. We know you've heard about these things before, and we've talked about it too, that where you place your energy, you place more energy, you see. So the more energy you put into negativity, the more negativity you're going to get. Because really, here's an interesting thing. Negative energy is just energy. Positive energy is also just energy. Basically, it's all energy. But even energy is illusion, you see. So what you want to do is wake up from the whole thing, but you start with this, you see. You start with looking at your mind, your reactions to your life, to those who seem to be separate from you, noticing when you play the blame game, which is you're projecting out something that is within you onto something or someone else, so that you don't have to take the time to look at it within yourself. Because if you looked at that within yourself, you would realize that you are the cause of your unrest. It's not someone else or something else that seems to be out there. There is no out there in truth. It is all in your own mind. So these scenarios that you think you see with your physical eyes are illusions that everyone pretty much agrees upon. That makes it very real to you, you see, even though it's not. That's the illusion. Let's play this game where we'll see things, or we will perceive things. We'll believe that, number one, that we're bodies, and that sight comes from the eyeball, and the activity in something called a brain. We'll forget about the mind. We'll forget about vision, real vision, and say that it has everything to do with the body. That'll make it really serious and really, really real, because we'll feel things, we'll sense things, and we'll forget everything that's true. We'll forget that we are not the body, that all of this is really an illusion, that these are just activities that seem to take place in a world that seems to exist, but is actually just a dream. But we have all these agreements, so it'll make it seem really real. And then on top of that, we'll have lots of conflict. That'll make it even more real, way more real. Can you imagine if your life here was filled with joy and peace? You would simply express those energies. And then you would say, well, not much to do here, really. You said, no, we want to really, really, really expand. So let's do this. Let's make up a world that's so filled with contrast and conflict, which is contrast, that we'll have no choice but to expand and grow. We can go on and on and on about this, and actually we are today. We know there are a couple questions that are coming forward that has this exact kind of inquiry in them. We'll be able to go deeper into that, and we are going to let everyone know ahead of time that we're actually going to give you an assignment today. We don't usually send you off with an assignment, but this will be very helpful in your life if you do it. Okay? So we're going to give you the assignment before we take the questions so that we can get that out there. And in case these previously submitted questions, if we end those and we've got lots of time, you can send your questions in the chat about the assignment. So what's the assignment? So everybody's heard of do it for 30 days. We're going to say, of course, it's a do it for 30 days, but we're going to say do it for a month. Do it for a month and see what happens. So what is it that we're going to do for a month? Well, number one, you're going to get a notebook. Whether that's going to be a physical notebook that you can turn pages in and write with a pen, or your cell phone, which has pages in it that you can type in with your thumbs and fingers. But you're going to have a designated notebook where every day you get up, you write down what it is you would like to experience for the day in terms of how you want to feel. And then also alongside that, you want to put the things that trigger you to not have those feelings. Does that make sense? So let's say, for example, I want to have a nice, peaceful day where everyone I meet and interact with is going to bring more feelings of love and peace and feeling of joining and things like that, of really solidifying truth in me. That's what I want. You go off and you have that, and then you completely forget because you run into that person or you see that piece of news. You forget the whole thing you wrote in the morning. You say, whoops, but I'm sorry, I'll do the whole peace and love thing later. I'm really angry at what I just saw on the news. I cannot get it out of my mind. And they did this, so I'm upset. Well, we want you to really become more aware. We want you to start taking responsibility for that feeling you get, rather than saying that it is coming from some external source. Because we're going to tell you it's never coming from an external source, but always coming from an internal source, your mind. And like we said at the beginning, you have two parts to your mind. What would it mean if you decided to, we're going to say that exactly, that you decided to get upset? Well, that would be choosing your wrong mind. But you can change your mind and choose your right mind. So this is a practice in awareness. So like we said, you write down how you want to feel, but not just leaving it as the things I want to feel. I'm going to write down the things that I know are going to set me off in the other direction. Meaning, I said I want a peaceful day. I want to expand and joy and love, but here's a list of the things that I know I'm going to experience. Because that's life in the illusion. I know that I'm going to come up against some news in the media in some way or on social media, whatever, that's going to seem to disturb my inner peace. And I'm going to project all over it and say it's coming from that. I have nothing to do with it. But this time you're going to say, all right, so now I've written down all of the things that are going to happen, and we're going to say it like that. These things are definitely going to happen because this happens every day, for the most part, in some way, one way or another. And this time, I'm going to be aware of that. So when I see this person on the news, I decided that that's going to trigger me. I decided that this is going to make me upset. But rather than continuing on with that and saying, this is the thing that's made me upset, I'm going to stop and say, wow, here's an opportunity to remember that it isn't coming from anything external from me. It's coming from the fact that I chose to listen to the wrong part of my mind. And right then and there, I'm going to change my mind. What would the mind of peace see about this? We'll tell you that the mind of peace would say, what I am looking at is an illusion. Everything about it is an illusion. It speaks of separation. It tells me that I'm a victim, because every time you choose to say someone made you upset, you have chosen to be a victim. But now you can choose again. Does that make sense to everyone? Wonderful. So we want you to begin this practice and do it for a month. Eventually, you'll probably end up doing it for the rest of your life, because you'll want to have these experiences, and then you want to, from there, so now you've got that set up, what can I do differently? How can I see this differently? Well, I can turn to my right mind. What would that be like? What would it be like to see my trigger and see it not as a trigger of upset anymore, but a trigger of remembrance that I don't have to go down that road. That I can choose to be at peace no matter what the world seems to throw at me. And also, I will remember that the world isn't throwing anything at me. I'm drawing it to myself. And rather than continuing with this pattern, I want to change it. And you begin to make different choices in your life as you go along. And you'll become more and more cognizant of your experience and more aware of your involvement in everything, and therefore your ability to forgive everything. So we'll just leave that right there, but just practice this for 1 month. Make it a real practice, because that's how you really see the changes. It's not just reading about this stuff. Wow, that was really great. Then you go on with your life. Well, nothing happened. Well, nothing happened because you didn't do anything about it. We're giving you directions to do something about it. So with that, we are ready for questions. The submitted questions, and then anything that comes in through the chat as time allows.
Thank you, Jesus. The first question is from Jane. And Jane asks, I have a question about predictions that are circling of upcoming unprecedented catastrophic earthquakes in California, as well as Yellowstone erupting, both during the next year. Is there any likelihood of either of these events occurring suddenly in such a magnitude that California would be unlivable for 2 decades? Can we abide in and send peaceful energy to avoid or minimize destruction of homes and keep families together?
So we will use this question as a way to point you in the direction of remembering that this is an illusion. We do not do predictions, because that entails a lot that is up to you, you see. And here's the thing. Earth changes, planetary changes, things like that, all illusion, but also natural, normal, and not out of the ordinary. It seems out of the ordinary to you because you're used to a world or an Earth, a planet that seems to be pretty stable. We're saying this, though, that the Earth is never stable. It's interesting because it's almost like a reflection of wrong-minded thoughts. We're just putting that lightly. It really has nothing to do with any of that. But really, if you think about it, so you were asking, could you send light to it? We are going to tell you something that would not really help, because what you're doing is you're making the scenario that's been predicted real to you. You're saying, this is definitely going to happen. Perhaps if I send light to it, it will disappear. And like we said earlier, this is in terms of negativity, and typically you perceive catastrophes on Earth as negative. And we're going to also say there's judgment there. It's all judgment. Instead of just, okay, that's just the Earth. Not all of Earth is pleasurable. Never has been and never will be. That's nature. Okay? Like, literally think about that. That's nature. You can't do anything about that. But what you can do is go within. Change the patterns of thought within your mind to live a more peaceful life from within, you see. No matter what seeming catastrophes may or may not happen, you see. That's where the real work is done.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Wonderful. So
Thank you.
practice that.
I am.
So when you hear a prediction, kind of shrug it off, because as you know from listening to our conversations and doing spiritual work, time is an illusion. Predictions have to do with time and form and illusion. This is all dream stuff. It actually cannot affect you on the level of mind or spirit. You are eternal. The body dies, you don't. Did you have any other questions about that?
I have another question.
Okay.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting ready to sell my home and move into what will be the equivalent of a granny flat, but they told me I can bring my 4 dogs while it's being built and stay at their in-laws' house, but I cannot bring my parrots. I told them that that's not acceptable. Of course, I'm bringing my parrots. So we're at loggerheads and I'm afraid I can't move.
Well, you want to begin to, we're going to tell you this work from within, you see. So you don't let something like this disturb your inner peace, you see. So then you do whatever needs to be done on the level of form, but you don't let that wreck you from within, you see. Do you follow what we're saying?
Yes.
What did you want to know from us about that?
Well, I guess I'm hoping for a prediction that you don't give.
We don't give predictions.
Right.
We don't give magic tricks either. All we can give you is work on the level of mind.
Okay.
You can see yourself living peacefully there and just see it like that, even if it's not like that in form at the moment. Something wonderful could happen, but you want to also be open to the fact that something not wonderful could happen. But you want to learn how to be at peace no matter what. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Yes, so that's really the practice. I will see this as an opportunity to choose peace over conflict in my mind, despite what my eyes tell me I'm looking at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This next question is from Neil. And Neil asks, Dear Jesus, what is your relationship with the beings of light in heaven? Do you supervise them or guide them? And how does this relationship affect us here in the dream? Thank you.
So, number one, there is no them. We're all one. So that's about all we have to say about that. Literally, we are one, you see. So the way that this question is formulated is speaking on the level of form and also in linear thinking. We're beyond that, you see, meaning we don't operate in it. So it's this boundless love, you see, constant light. And we're not talking about physical light like you see in sunlight and all that, but it is light beyond your wildest imaginings. Love like you've never felt it before. And indescribable in words. And that is always ongoing, eternally. There is no us and them. There is only us. When we say us, we're talking about we, everyone, everything. And when we say that, we are speaking beyond form. Does that make sense?
Yes, Jesus, I think, and that includes we here in the dream.
Absolutely. You are not separate. You just think you are.
So is it counterproductive to think of like ourselves here as much as we can know ourselves or try to know ourselves? Is it counterproductive to think of help from beyond? Like
Not at
you
all.
mentioned.
Remember, there are stages to awakening. So let's say someone who's never even been involved with anything to do with learning that there is such thing as spirit, and that they are that, or that anything to do with mind, all they know is brain and body. There's definitely great use for calling upon something that seems external from you, because there's a belief in external as a fact, you see. And wouldn't be very helpful if we said, don't ask for anything because your spirit, you already have it. Even if you don't believe it, just assume that and pretend like you don't have these hidden fears or anything like that. That would be terrible. Of course, there's help. And in fact, we encourage you to call upon that help as long as you need it, because it is always there for you. You see.
And that's part of prayer, is it not, Jesus? Asking for help and
That's
and
a form of prayer. So before you realize that you are not separate, that oneness is truth, there is an activity of prayer where it is a seeming invitation to something outside of you to greet you internally and remind you of truth, you see. But once you know this stuff, prayer is not necessary. And when we say once you know this stuff, we're talking about capital K, know. Like you know it, you are it. You see.
Well, Jesus, it's taken me 2 years to get up the courage to ask you this question. But I want to ask it today. I know this is a dream-bound question. We're all caught up in this dream. I certainly am. But my family and I have wondered for 2 years. I don't know if you would be able to say anything. When my son John passed away 2 years ago, even the doctors don't understand what happened. I wonder whether, and I know he had some turmoil in his mind. He had quite a bit of turmoil. I'm wondering if you might be able to shed any light on whether he might have tried to take his life.
Now that we can't talk about because it is past. Therefore, if we gave you stories about something that might have happened, your mind would go crazy, thinking about all the things you could have done or what you should have done or what could have been stopped or he shouldn't have done, etc. That's not helpful, is it?
No.
What is helpful is to make peace with where you are and know that he is with you always.
I know that's what he wants, and that's what makes him.
To.
Yeah. Does he kind of smile and laugh
all the time? And actually, you do too. You just don't know that.
Yes. Yeah. I want to be more in touch with that, Jesus. More and more, and I can feel his presence. And I mean, sometimes when I get caught up in daily comings and goings, and I get stressed, I think of simple things like, working in my garden with the spring coming, or pruning Johnny's tree to make it grow better. And they're earthly things, but I guess there's nothing wrong with dealing with them.
It's a symbol of rejuvenation and life for you. You see, attending to a love that never dies. You see.
Yes, and I guess it's our wrong-mindedness that gets hung up on questions of what happened in the past.
Absolutely.
Or what should have happened.
Right. Yes. The wrong mind always wants to take you down all of these roads that have to do with time, especially the past.
And when I think of things like, I enjoy my work, and I thank you, Jesus, for helping me get a new job playing in a Methodist church soon, and I'll be worshiping with a beautiful group of people in that church. So I'm very thankful for you and for Johnny and the one to help arrange that.
Absolutely. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jesus, and we'll try our best to stay in our right mind, and that's what we want. We want to be in our right mind. We want to be
Yes,
happy.
but also be kind to yourself and don't beat yourself up if you find that you've kind of gone off track. That's actually part of the process and practice is noticing when you do and forgiving yourself and being kind to yourself and then reminding yourself, I want to stay on this track of right-minded thinking. But do it gently with a smile on your face.
Well, thank you, Jesus, and especially thank you for listening to questions that come from my wrong-mindedness.
Oh, it's
Thank
absolutely. We love you.
We love you. I love you too, Jesus, so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question is from Milen. And Milen asks, Dear Jesus, I have been trying to complete the course lessons for 4 years now. Every time I reach the 90s and low 100s, my ego throws huge distractions my way, pulling me off track. But this time feels different. Even in the middle of the storm, I feel closer to you. The storms seem to get bigger each time, but so does my trust in you. I have a picture of you that says, focus on me, not the storm. That message brings me comfort. And honestly, the fact that the picture is so ugly makes me laugh. I like to think we share that laugh together. Can you offer me some encouragement, a personal pep talk, to help me stay steady through this challenging part of the workbook? Thank you, Jesus. I love you.
And we love you too. And yes, we do share that laughter together every time and all the time. So, how to stay steady in completing the course, the workbook? You have to remember that the workbook, even though there seems to be an ending to it, is not a real end. And we actually say that at the end of it, this is not an end, but a beginning, you see. And that's because the practices of the workbook are things you want to implement into your daily life for the extended or for the rest of your life, you see. So it isn't really about completing numbered passages, okay? That's wonderful. That's a symbol of completion for you in form. But what you want to do is actually practice this in your day-to-day life and take it with you all the time. You don't have to take the book with you, but the thoughts with you, you see. And it's like what this assignment that we gave to you. In fact, by doing the assignment that we gave to you at the beginning of this session will actually help you in completing the workbook as well. Because it takes you into a place of mindfulness and awareness, and you'll say, that's right, I wanted to do these lessons. So I'm going to go ahead and do the lessons. I'm not going to make a big deal out of doing the lessons. This might be this hang up you might have at the end there. I'm not going to make a big deal out of doing the lessons. I'll just do them. But I'm going to do them in such a way that even if it's not completed that day, I'll just remember that the only answer to that is forgiveness and try it again the next day. You see, and as you continue practicing what we said, at the beginning, you will become more aware of the things that do draw you away into the seeming world and forget. So mindfulness will help a lot. In fact, it's all about mindfulness. The other thing we wanted to say, you said your ego distracts you. This might help you to know that the ego is not separate from you. The ego is in your mind. It is not an entity that is a separate thing running around saying, I'm the ego and I'm going to distract you. It's your wrong-minded decision, you see. but you can always change your mind. So it helps to realize that it's you. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Rather than the ego. Okay, it's my ego, the ego part of my mind. So I went down the wrong-minded thought system path. And I don't really want to do that anymore, so I'm going to do my best to stay as aware as possible and forgive myself all the time. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Always remember, you always answer at the same time I write the question. So you said the same thing in my head. So
Exactly.
I knew that.
So
Thank
you've
you.
got to also cultivate that in yourself. Write that down on your notebook.
Okay.
That will prove to you that your communication is open. So wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you.
This next question is from George, who is not here today. But George asks, when I leave my body behind, that is, when it is time for me to cross over, what will happen? Who will I meet? Will I be able to talk to you, Yeshua, as in face-to-face conversation? Does it depend on how I died?
It does not depend on how you died, because you don't die. It doesn't depend on how your body decides, or it doesn't depend on how you decided your body to die. Death is not real. Who will you meet? Everyone, everything, everywhere, from all time, including beyond time, out of time, you see. What happens? You wake up and you remember fully and completely. Ah, thank God. That was just a dream. What a dream. You'll also be inundated with what you've learned, how you've expanded, and so on. It's an ongoing, eternal process of love.
Thank you. I have heard, though, that there are beings called archons that impersonate those from the angelic realm, especially you, Yeshua, to make the spirit crossing over think that he is talking to you, Yeshua, when it is actually an impostor. Are there beings who trick us into thinking we are with you after we cross over?
No,
If so, okay.
we're going to say no because that's not something to keep in mind. See, here's the thing. When you transition, you're going to take your mind with you, okay? So if you have a whole thought system, I'm going to meet these archons, they're going to trick me, and I'm going to be confused, you're going to transition and be confused. If you focus on the truth, as we're teaching here, and you tune into yourself and know thyself, you are an eternal being. You are infinite, you see. You cannot be harmed by anything. Well, you think about that. Here comes an archon. Out of here. Oh, you're one of those. Onward and upward. I see the light, excuse me. Actually, you see it like you're not even anything. And don't even pay attention to it. They're just like thoughts, you see. So you really want to clean up your mind. Actually, we're going to give this as a pointer to everyone. Number one, there's nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear. If you find fear within yourself, keep releasing it. Don't hold on to it. It has nothing for you. We're talking about that fear that seems to be this thing within you. That's just your wrong-minded thought system, trying to catch you off guard and convince you the reality of duality. You see, so anything that you may encounter like that, it's just pieces of the past. There is no past. Everything is over and done with, you see, complete and filled with light and love. So you want to empty your mind of those thoughts. Let it go. Don't hold on to your grievances. You can't take them with you. And in fact, get rid of your grievances now. You can have a better life in this dream state, you see. That means you won't take it so seriously. Does that make sense to everyone? So lighten up. That's a really good point. If you're light about life, these thoughts are not going to seem to come at you. And if they do, oh, geez, here it is. That's so silly. Just silly. If you could crack a smile every now and then, laugh it off. You have nothing to fear. And we mean that.
Thank you, Jesus.
You're welcome.
This next question is from Carrie about the assignment.
Wonderful.
And Carrie says or asks, at the end of each day, is it helpful to write unexpected triggers
Yes, indeed.
and perceived failures?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, that is part of the assignment, which is why we said at the very beginning, you want to write down the things you want to feel and the things you know are going to pull you away or seem to. Whatever you have put your mind to, do that. So it is incredibly crucial even to, at the end of the day, or take out your notebook again, look at your notebook. What did I say at the beginning? How did I do? Did I come across these triggers and how did I respond or how did I react? And write down the answer to those. Does that make sense?
Yes, I was wondering because maybe I just want to focus on where I was successful, or is that still just part of the dream and I'm not in the present moment? So the ego is just kind of getting in there and making a mess.
It's great to point out to yourself where you were successful, but it is also great and actually more important to point out to yourself where you went off track. Because then you realize, okay, I do go off track. I'm not going to beat myself up for that, but I'm going to practice with more awareness. You see, now I know even more so that that really is a trigger for me. And that I don't have to respond like that. And I'm going to try every day that I come across that experience to not follow it. So you get to see, you go with it less and less. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm also including things that I wasn't expecting to happen, like it took me off guard and how I reacted, if it was good or bad.
Exactly. That's perfect. And in fact, that is important to say, well, this thing happened and I felt really good about it. It was really awesome. It's important to see this too and say, this too is illusion.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking it's all keeping me in the dream because it's not now. So then I'm like, well, is that even what I want to do at this point of the game? Yes.
Yes, right now, yes, because you want to see, well, I got really excited there. You see, and I forgot that even that feeling of really greatness is like illusion too. And it's actually equal to the opposite of it. So it's the same amount of energy into both, you see. What you want to do eventually is let it all go.
Okay.
So,
yeah, but at this stage of the game, look at it, be aware of it.
Eventually it'll just become like second nature. You'll see it and you'll know it and it won't happen or it will, but you won't feel like you have to write it down. Just in the beginning, it's important to keep a notebook of these things. And so it becomes like second nature, which is why we said give it a month. try it out for a month, write it down, and next month, perhaps you could bring your experiences to share, you see.
Okay, thank you. Whenever you're done with other questions, I have another question.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ask the question. They're saying ask the question.
Okay. So I was wondering if you could help me with in the vein of what we're talking about today and how to approach something. I know that I have an underlying we'll call it disharmony regarding the my ex-son-in-law trying to get custody of my granddaughters. And while I want to see everybody as love and not hold the past against them, there is this fear of him being abusive with my granddaughters. So I have this fear coming, and I look at that, I'm like, okay, I would like to put that in my monthly lesson, what we're doing for the month. And I would like to know the best way to approach it so that I can actually have a goal as to how I should be approaching it.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to ask you, actually, first of all, we're going to say you want to look at it from a mind of peace, you see. And so that will help you go in the right direction. That's not about blame, it's not about criticism or anything like that. It's just you're able to see it kind of from a stepping back and observing it so that you are not emotional about it, but you can actually see it clearly. Does that make sense?
I feel like the way to get to the mind of peace is actually not to think about that, but get into alignment, and from that point, look at the situation.
Well, that's what the mind of peace is.
Okay.
Okay, but here's the thing. If you have an experience, or you've had an experience, let's say, with an individual where there has been a sign of physical abuse or anything of that nature, we would say, do what you need to do on the level of form. But do it from a state of mind of peace. Kind of like it's logical to take care of this situation in this way, you see.
Okay. So I personally don't have to do anything. My daughter is going to court to try to stop him from getting partial custody.
Okay.
So I personally don't have to do anything. I want to be peace in the matter. I know that everybody is love, and I don't know how to think about this to stay in the mind of peace.
Well, here there can be a little bit of a misunderstanding of the mind of peace. We'll just say it like this. We don't know the scenario, but it sounds like what you're saying is there is an individual who is an abuser. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Make peace with that fact. Okay.
Okay.
Don't try to make it pretty and, oh, you're all love and I know it.
Yeah, that's what I didn't want to bypass it. I wanted to.
Exactly. And when you beat the crap out of those people, your love, no, not at all. That's someone in their wrong mind and who has a mental problem. Okay. On the level of form, there is a fact about mental disorders. And mental disorders must be handled on the level in which they can receive it, you see, which would be on the level of form. So don't try to make it into a spiritual thing, okay? Don't say that I can lift myself up and see this person as love and peace, because you're not going to. Okay? That's basically, that's painting over a dirty spot, we'll say. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What you want to do is, okay, this is something that seems to be happening. on the level of form. This is an experience. I can't do a spiritual bypass of it because it's in my face, okay? And it's fact. Don't get mad at the fact, it's just a fact. Say, I know that this isn't the truth of the person, but I can say that that's a fact. This person chose this, you see. So do whatever you need to do to take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. Does that make sense?
It does. So my thought has been, okay, he's doing this, but I can still be love. So like he would go to my granddaughter's basketball games and I can still be loving to him when I see him, but that doesn't mean that I condone him trying to get custody. But I can still be love when I see him because he's not the act.
Right.
Am I shredding it apart? I mean, it doesn't seem right that I would not be loved.
Well, of course it doesn't seem right. You're not going to go in there and say, I think like this about you, and this is what I see about, you're not going to do that. You're just going to be normal about it. Okay, what would a normal person do? I have an awareness that there's a fact about this person. And I have that awareness. I know the truth. Obviously, I'm not off my rocker, so I'm not going to go out there and be some strange, aggressive person.
Well, then I'm just being like he is if I was doing that.
That's what we were saying. So we said, you are not off your rocker. You are not going to go up to him and start acting like a crazy person. Well, you're just going to be normal. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's a call for love, is it not?
It is, but remember this, okay? Here's where you are taking it too seriously, okay? And you're saying, okay, I have to make this a really spiritual love fest. Okay? I don't want to see the fact. Okay? What you want to do is I see the fact, I'm going to be a normal person.
Okay.
I'm not going to make a spiritual in-depth thing out of this.
Okay.
Okay? Because there could be a legal thing about this. We'll just tell you everything's spiritual. That'll cover all bases. And in fact, we are going to tell you that everything is a call for love. Everything in the illusion is a call for love.
I have a very hard time not showing the face of love towards a person.
No one is telling you not to.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
that's what we're saying. You're saying we just said this, and then you're saying, but I'm not the type of person who wouldn't show love. We didn't say you weren't. We didn't tell you not to. We just said, don't start making this some big thing. Okay, you were making it a big thing.
Yeah.
So don't make it a big thing. Just be love.
So on my homework, I say, I'm going to see this person today.
Very
And
good.
I'm choosing that I've already said I want to feel this way today. I'm going to see this person today on my homework.
Mm-hmm.
And then that just kind of gives me a heads up. Oh, this is coming.
Yep.
And I've already chosen that I want to feel this a certain way.
Exactly.
And that's the homework.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Perfect.
Wonderful.
Thank
and then
you.
notice the feelings that do come up when you have the experience and write those down later. But do keep in mind, I said I wanted love. So I wanted to keep my mind in the direction of love.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was a wonderful session today. We know that you will take this practice. Actually, we're going to say we hope you will take this practice and do it. But when you do it, you'll really open something within yourself, this awareness that has always been with you all the time and has never left. And it will feel like a coming home. When you are with yourself, we're talking about your capital self, who you really are, and you're doing this practice, you're going to become more aware of your capital self. And you're going to become more aware of the times that you go off track. But you're going to become more eager to stay on track, you see. You will become more excited about staying on track because you will notice there is a track that you want to stay on. And as you go along, it'll become easier and easier. But it's going to take work. Do it with joy. Do it with a light heart. Don't beat yourself up. Write down when you do. Forgive yourself and tell yourself, I'm not going to do that again. And if I do, I'm still going to forgive myself. I love myself, etc. We love you all, and all is well. Thank you for joining with us today. It was wonderful. And we look forward to joining with you once again soon enough. But do this practice, and we'll touch base. Namaste.